Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am tier ranking all of the books I've read so far in quarantine. Lockdown, isolation, whatever you want to call it. Not going out anywhere or seeing anyone. But these are the books I have read so far during lockdown. Let me just count them real quick. 46. I've read 46 books so far. Alrighty, let's get started. So the tiers that I've made are must read, pretty good, meh, not a fan, or trash. First on the list is Cleopatra, A Life, I think. It's like a biography type book by Stacy Schiff. I really enjoyed this one. I've always had a fascination with Cleopatra, and I thought this was really a good account of her life. So that's gonna go in pretty good. The Fire Next Time, James Baldwin. I think this should be required reading. This is a must read. James Baldwin is just one of the best writers. It's a book that is both intensely personal to Baldwin, but also examines the overall societal structure of racial injustice, and I really do think it should be required reading. Okay, next, The Time Traveler's Wife, I thought was trash. I thought it was really creepy. It's like a 40-year-old man who starts basically grooming his future wife when she's like 10 years old by time traveling. And I found it creepy and gross, and it was just very bad. Siege and Storm, I think was meh. I'm already kind of forgetting some of the stuff that happened. Okay, Aristotle's Poetics. Must read. I feel like this is such a great read, especially if you are interested in anything having to do with acting or writing. It's one of my favorite things I've read so far this year. Ernest Cline's Armada. He is the author who wrote Ready Player One, which I actually have not read yet. But I thought Armada was just okay. If you really enjoy pop culture references, I think specifically 80s references, then you'll like it. Or video game references. Okay, The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers. Must read. I think this is a really good read also for any writers, anyone who's interested in mythology and just the origin of stories and the origin of the hero or the protagonist. There's a lot of really interesting content in the book. All right, A Man Called Uva was pretty good. It actually made me cry at the end, and it's been a long time since I really cried like that at a book. It's very moving, and the book grew on me as the character grew, so I liked that. All right, The Book Thief was also pretty good. There was like some kind of criticism I read about it that I agreed with. I can't remember what it was now though, so I guess I'm gonna put it in pretty good. Big Little Lies was just meh for me. I could tell you one plot point that happened, so I've already forgotten it. Okay, Battle of the Labyrinth. I'm already kind of forgetting what happened in this one too. I'm gonna put that in meh. Gone Girl, trash. I hate that book. All right, A Darker Shade of Magic. I was too distracted while reading this. I barely remember it, so I'm gonna put it in meh. Ta-Nehisi Coates, Between the World and Me. I think also required reading. Similarly to what I said about James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time, Between the World and Me is at the same time deeply personal but also universal. I also felt like Ta-Nehisi Coates has a really lyrical, poetic writing style that was stunning. So that one is a must read. Sea of Monsters, I really liked this one. So I'm gonna put that one in pretty good. All right, The Heretic Queen. This was a kind of follow-up to Nefertiti. Really like books about Egypt. This one felt a little bit too much like chick lit drama or something. By the way, if you hear a little toe tapping, it's my dog walking around. So just ignore that. Yeah, The Heretic Queen was just okay to me. It wasn't my favorite read. The Girl from Venice by Martin Cruz Smith is a World War II, I believe, kind of historical drama, and it was actually pretty good. It's about an Italian fisherman whose brother is a movie star but also entangled with people who are working with Germany. The Italian fisherman finds a Jewish girl in the bay, I think in Venice, and he helps her. This one has a little bit of everything. It was like a little bit of historical fiction, a little bit of romance, a little bit of mystery and thriller. And I actually did enjoy it. Okay, the next is Roar by Cora Carmick. I think I touched on this one in another video. It was just okay to me. Too many like tropes I don't like. Okay, next one is History of Wolves, which I don't know if it's like must read, but it is really good. I think I'm gonna put it in pretty good. It's a really interesting and layered novel that takes a lot of introspection. It's also very moving and sad. I talked about it in another video, but I forgot to mention that it's kind of a mystery that unfolds as you're reading. All right, The Book of Joy with the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. This is a book that is must read for everyone, everywhere. Just like gives you such a good perspective for life, gratitude and joy, the human condition. I think this one made me cry a little bit too, but happier tears. So that one I think is must read. Okay, Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward. This is about a family that has a lot of struggles in Mississippi. The mother in the family is dealing with the death of her brother and has visions of him and is struggling with substance abuse. So the children live with their grandparents, one of which is dying of cancer. This story is another one that was really moving and really difficult to read. So I'll probably put it in pretty good. Okay, the next was Little Fires Everywhere. This one was just meh to me. What I did like is that it kind of revolves around stories of women. There's 2 mothers, there's 2 daughters. So I did like that aspect, but I think it was just too hyped up in my mind and it just kind of fell flat for me. Okay, Sky in the Deep also fell really flat for me. I was just not really interested in the characters or even really the storyline. I don't remember a lot of it, but I didn't like it enough to read the second book. All right, The Great Alone, I'm sorry, is gonna go into trash. I could not stand how the author was using so many deep traumas to further the story. Like, hey, let's add in a car accident here. Let's add in PTSD here. Let's add in alcoholism, abuse, domestic violence. It was like everything. I just did not appreciate that. I feel like if you're going to tackle so many really hard issues, you should give them the respect of allowing the characters to work through them, or at least let the issues like sink in with the reader before you hop to the next one. I don't know. The Secret Garden. It's like a classic. I think I liked it. It was pretty good, but there was also a couple like, but the character, the little girl, was like, I think kind of racist at times. I don't know if that was like supposed to be part of the point of the character. So I'm gonna put that one in meh. Okay, Candide by Voltaire. This book was so weird, so bizarre. I'm gonna put that in meh. Okay, Crown of Feathers. I did like it. Talk about it in my other video, so I'm gonna put it in pretty good. I almost need a tier in between pretty good and meh. Okay, The Kiss Quotient. This one was cutesy, but meh. I just didn't really like the relationship between the 2 characters. I liked the female protagonist, and protagonist has Asperger's. I don't think there's enough main characters like that. Okay, Once and Future. I enjoyed certain aspects of it. Like, there were some funny moments, there were some heart-wrenching moments, and really good representation in this book as well. But I think I'll put it in pretty good. All right, The Art of Happiness in a Troubled World. So this was another book written with the Dalai Lama, but I felt that this book didn't incorporate enough wisdom from the Dalai Lama himself. It was more about psychology that the author himself knew, and I just didn't like it. Okay, Verity by Colleen Hoover. This book was so popular last year, and I didn't get around to reading it until this year. I did enjoy it. It did kind of have me on the edge of my seat at times, but that ending was horrible. If you haven't read it, it's like a thriller or mystery about a young woman who is hired to work as like a ghostwriter and basically finish these popular novelists' novels. And for some reason, they have her move into their house, and the author, the novelist in the book, is like in a coma or something, and her husband starts to fall for the young woman, the writer that they've hired. But then the protagonist starts to think that, you know, his wife is like maybe not in a coma. I also did not enjoy how she started the novel. I feel like that's mildly traumatizing, the description she starts the novel with of this like car accident. So I'm gonna put that one in meh. Okay, The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. A follow up to The Handmaid's Tale, pretty much. I heard a lot of people say not to bother with this one because The Handmaid's Tale was so much better. And I would have to agree. The Handmaid's Tale I really enjoyed, and it was a total page turner for me. But The Testaments, I was like, not really interested. It wasn't very good, so I'm going to put that in meh. All right, The Giver of Stars. This was meh to me. It's about a group of women who are in Kentucky in like the 1500s, 1800s. I don't remember. No, maybe it's more like 1930s. I don't know. Either way, it's about a group of women who are in like the Kentucky outback in the middle of nowhere, and they band together to deliver library books via horse. And it was kind of cutesy, but overall, I think it went on too long. There was like this weird trial that happened that I was not really interested in. So that one goes in meh. Find Me. This is the sequel to Call Me By Your Name. I really, really loved Call Me By Your Name, but I totally forgot about the age gap. I think Elio is 17 and Oliver is 24. But I wanted to read the sequel. I was really curious. Would not recommend it, would not read it again. It was so disappointing. Okay, Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood, Sarah J. Maas. This one was disappointing too because, I don't know, I guess I loved Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses so much more than this one. And I don't really think that this one needed to be 800 pages. I think she went a little bit overboard with the info dumping, which can always like get boring fast. And the characters are just a lot less likable to me. So this one is gonna go in meh. All right, My Dark Vanessa. I talk about this one more in depth on my July reading wrap up, but this one's gonna go in trash because I think it glorifies an abusive relationship. All right, The Last Olympian. This one was pretty good. I think this is the final book in the Percy Jackson series, and I thought it was a good way to wrap it up. Nefertiti. I loved it. Must read. It's historical fiction, heavy emphasis on the fiction. It's definitely not, you know, like a very accurate account of ancient Egypt. It was thousands and thousands of years ago, so any account that you read of it will be different, most likely. But as like a guilty pleasure read, I loved it. Okay, The Betrothed by Kira Cass was trash. It was not good. The writing was bad, the plot was bad, the characters were very one-dimensional. Oh my gosh, y'all. My camera just cut off. So I just did The Betrothed. Next was The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I did not like this one. I would not recommend it. I would just suggest watching the movie Rear Window instead. So that's going to go into not a fan. It's about a woman who is suffering from agoraphobia, and she watches her neighbors from her window. And she thinks that she witnesses a murder, which sounds really good, but in its execution, it was actually not very good. And the ending was really unbelievable. There were some huge plot holes. All right, next was Heart of Flames, which was the sequel to Crown of Feathers. And it was 650 pages, which I think was about 300 pages too long. So it's gonna go into meh. Not a lot of stuff happens. Okay, next was Catch and Kill, Lies, Spies, and the Conspiracy to Protect Predators by Ronan Farrow. But it's about Harvey Weinstein and the system that protected him and protects him and people like him. And Ronan Farrow is a really great journalist, a really great writer. He's really respectful of the victims and their stories, and it's just overall amazing read. So I put this in must read. Okay, next is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. It's about mass incarceration in the age of colorblindness. So I think that this also should be required reading. I'm gonna put that one in must read. It provides so much information and so much historical context that they don't teach you in school. Next is The Titan's Curse. I don't really remember what happened in this one, so I'm gonna put it in meh. I'm sorry. Next is Atlas Shrugged. Please don't judge me. Let me provide some context first. So Atlas Shrugged is often weaponized by conservatives against liberal people. I believe it falls under the category of libertarianism, also Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. I'm a big believer in reading stuff to form your own opinion, so I decided to try it. But it's very much pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, and it's basically a love letter to capitalism that's 1,200 pages long. I'm not really a fan of capitalism. In that aspect, I don't support the book. I don't agree with the philosophy. It has a story itself, if you can separate the philosophy from the story. The first half is enjoyable. Again, though, you kind of have to look at the characters as kind of like these larger than life archetypes rather than relatable characters. The one character I did like was Dagny Taggart. I just thought it was awesome that she was a woman running the railroad. She definitely kind of comes across, though, as like this stereotype of a career woman who doesn't care about anything else but her career. So it'd be nice to have dynamic characters that care about more than just career. Like, there doesn't need to be mutual exclusivity. But I also don't think that there's anything wrong with portraying an unapologetically ambitious female character. So I'm going to put this one in meh because I don't agree with the philosophy. I don't agree with the way that the book is weaponized. But I was curious to read it for myself, and the story, if you look at it as just a story, is somewhat enjoyable. Well, especially in the first half. Toward the last half, it was not as enjoyable. Also, Ayn Rand calls the working class looters, I think. So that's nice. All right, finally we have The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, who grew up really poor, I think in the South. She has a very unconventional upbringing, and her parents are always moving around and stealing, and she doesn't have the best childhood. I thought it was okay, but not good enough to where it's earned its place on all of these must-read lists. Also, just a little, I guess, nitpicky, but I had to look up what year this book was published. I thought it was published much, much longer ago. I looked it up and it was published in 2006, which I found especially surprising because when Jeanette is talking about her grandmother, I think, she talks about the racial slurs that her grandmother used. I just don't understand why white authors feel the need to use the N-word, even if they're quoting somebody else. I feel like most of the time it's pretty unnecessary, especially if she's just like quoting her grandmother. She could have just said that her grandmother used the N-word or used racial slurs. I don't think that she needed to use the N-word like in the text. It's kind of like if you were talking about your grandmother and you repeated what she said out loud. I don't see how that's that much different than writing it. So that one is going to go into not a fan. I overall just wasn't a very big fan of it. So here is the finished product. I'm really glad I got the chance to reflect on the books I've read while in isolation. Being in isolation has felt like a million years long, but at the same time, it's felt like it's gone by pretty quickly. So it's really interesting to reflect on all these books I've read. I feel like I read them a million years ago. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do a tier ranking video where you rank all the books that you read during isolation, I would love to see it. And yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.